The Holocaust wasn't Germany's first genocide. It was in Namibia.
My grandmother used to tell me about the genocide.
Very painful history.
The German Empire killed 100,000 Herero and Nama people in a systematic campaign of extermination through ideology and tactics that laid the foundation for Nazi crimes decades later.
My background is the people who died in the concentration camp.
Some of my family members were raped by the German colonial soldiers.
No war can be conducted in a humane way against those who aren't human. Only after the cleansing can something new emerge.
Imperial Germany's treatment of the indigenous people of Namibia foreshadowed the barbarity of the Nazi Holocaust.
This is a story of colonialism, resistance, and genocide that for a long time remained untold to obscure Germany's history and culpability.
They want the land back? How? Sorry, but that's just, I mean, really?
It is important to shed light on Namibia's dark past and remind us that Germany is the only country in the world to commit 2 genocides in the 20th century and now support a 3rd in Palestine. In 1884, European powers divided up Africa at the Berlin Conference, and Germany received 6 colonies, including Southwest Africa, what we know today as Namibia. Driven by the concept of Lebensraum, Germany's colonial expansionism sought living space for Germans as a necessary part of the nation's growth, survival, and prosperity. This was fueled by a deep racist nationalism and imperialism that was also at the heart of Nazi thinking. German settlers, accompanied by an army and mining companies, arrived and took over the land by forcibly removing the indigenous Herero and Nama people from their ancestral territories. It started with land deals and treaties that were never honored by the settlers, because ethnic cleansing was always the goal. One local newspaper wrote, "The country must be settled by white settlers. Therefore, the natives must disappear or place themselves at the disposal of the whites."
The Hereros were sent to these remote areas to serve as a labor pool for the white communities.
The German plan was to move the indigenous people into reservations and use them as labor. And to rule, they used cruelty, violence, and exploitation through a system of racial segregation. From the onset, the indigenous people resisted German colonialism, but things came to a head in 1904. Led by Samuel Maharero, the Herero launched their liberation struggle against the Germans, joined by the Nama shortly after. Through a series of well-planned large-scale attacks, they were able to push back German positions and kill 123 settlers. This was a big blow to the colonial regime, because they believed the natives had fully submitted, and never thought people who were racially inferior were capable of this. However, the Herero and Nama didn't achieve a decisive victory, and the Germans sent in 10,000 reinforcements under the leadership of Lothar von Trotha. He believed this was a race war, a common idea held by many Germans. At the Battle of Waterberg, von Trotha defeated the remaining Herero fighters and drove those retreating, including women and children, into the waterless Omaheki Desert. That is when he gave his infamous extermination order. Any Herero found inside German territory, with or without a gun or cattle, will be executed. I shall spare neither women nor children. In the desert, tens of thousands died of forced thirst and famine. German soldiers poisoned Herero water wells and executed anyone they found. Survivors were taken to concentration camps and sentenced to forced labor. Thousands more died in those camps.
Herero and Nama, who survived death in the desert, were brought here and used as slave labor.
Women and girls were forced to become sex slaves for German officers.
My great-grandmother was telling me that some of my family members were raped by the German colonial soldiers.
By 1908, it is estimated that 80% of the Herero and 50% of the Nama population were killed. It was a horrific genocide. Recognition and reparations for Namibia only came recently, after more than a century of denial. But even then, that is not enough. The legacy of Lebensraum still is very much alive. Today, 70% of Namibia's farmland is owned by 4,500 European farmers, who make up 0.3% of the population.
And we are living in poverty because of what they did to us at the time. Now we want them to restore our dignity. Reparations must come, and we want our land back.
Namibians are still living the consequences of German crimes.
They want the land back? How? Sorry, but that's just, I mean, really? It's not even their land. If they wanted their land, then they should have done something 100 years ago.
The genocide of the Herero and Nama people was the precursor to the Holocaust. In Namibia, Germany created a methodical system that combined technology, bureaucracy, and ideology to annihilate a people they saw as inferior. Everything from racial supremacy and Lebensraum to concentration camps, forced labor, and extermination laid the foundation for what was to come in the future. To give you a sense of these links, Herero and Nama prisoners were taken to death camps on Shark Island, where doctors would conduct experiments on them. They would then export human remains to Germany for further research. These doctors would later serve the Nazis and use the same methodology on Jews in the Holocaust. Death camps started in the colonial world and were exported back to Europe. And in many ways, Shark Island was the precursor of Auschwitz. The Namibian genocide and the Holocaust are not two separate events in German history, but part of a historical continuum. While one was met with severe guilt and exceptionalized by placing it outside of history, another was met with denial. These extremes offer an insight into the German psyche and their ability to contend with their past openly and honestly, and not just performatively. And it is why, despite all of this, they're going out of their way to support Israel's genocide in Palestine.